There is a passage in Mark that may appear to be confronting to many of us. Jesus said, if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It is better for you to enter into life maimed rather than having two hands to go to hell, into the fire that shall never be quenched, where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. And if your foot causes you to sin, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life lame rather than having 2 feet to be cast into hell, into the fire that shall never be quenched, where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. And if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. It is better for you to enter the kingdom of God with one eye rather than having 2 eyes to be cast into hell fire, where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. Mark 9:43-48. Does Jesus mean that Christians should practice self-mutilation in order to remove our hands, our feet, and our eyes that have sinned against God? Certainly not. God forbid that we observe this passage literally, that will cause us to be maimed and blind. Jesus was using hyperbolic expressions, typically Jewish exaggerated expressions, to highlight an important point. What he meant was our sinful action comes from the heart and mind, from our evil intentions, and expresses itself through our hands, our feet, and our eyes, and our tongue as well. Therefore, make every effort to cut off the root cause, the thoughts and intentions that cause our hands, our feet, and our eyes to sin. Lust from the heart causes our eyes to sin. Evil intentions of the heart cause our hands and our feet to do evil. Jeremiah says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Jeremiah 17:9. Without these members of the body, evil cannot be expressed. But the solution is not cutting off these members. We are forbidden to destroy our body, but we need to brutally cut off this wickedness in the heart and the mind by utter submission to the Lordship of Christ, allowing His blood to cleanse us and His Spirit to transform us. Such acts of faith and obedience is synonymous to cutting off of the hands and feet and gouging off of the eye that offend God. In other words, we deal with the root cause of our action, the sinful heart. Jesus mentioned the same phrase, the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched, 3 times. Mark 9:44, 46, and 48. At the same time, he mentioned hell in relation to the sinful members of the body 3 times. We can easily associate hell with the description of what it is because of the use of the preposition where. Hell, where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. The word hell used by Jesus comes from the Hebrew Gehenna, or the valley of Hinnom, or the valley of the sons of Hinnom, mentioned 13 times in the Old Testament and 11 times in the New Testament. This was an actual location southwest of Jerusalem, where children were sacrificed by fire to the Ammonite god Molech, 2 Kings 23:10. This evil practice began with King Solomon and continued on even to the time of the Babylonian conquest and exile. King Solomon? Yes, that was the consequence of having many foreign and pagan wives. 1 Kings 11:3-7. This evil place later became a huge open rubbish dump where city refuge and animal carcasses were thrown. One can imagine the constant fire consuming the refuge and the putrefying smell of decaying animals and that were engulfed by worms and flies. Quite obviously, when Jesus spoke of members of the body thrown into hell or Gehenna, he was not talking about being literally thrown into the rubbish dump outside Jerusalem. Rather, Jesus was using a figurative language. The horrible, never-ending fire and worms on decaying refuge was a picture of what hell is like, the place of eternal punishment of the damned. Coming back to the words of Jesus, where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. Could it be that hell is not just a place of eternal fiery torment, but a place of eternal putrefying torments of worms as well? Both Harold, being eaten by worms, and the unnamed rich man who suffered in the fiery torment are experiences that warn us not to end up in this dreadful place. It all begins with our heart, which is deceitful above all things, that direct our physical members to do evil. Deal with the root cause, seeking forgiveness and cleansing from Christ, who died and rose again from the dead.